Good evening. I'd like to call the budget workshop to order. Stand for the pledge, don't we? Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we need to do a roll call? I don't think we do we? Okay,
Got it all right here.
I didn't think so. All right, so welcome. Welcome to the first budget meeting of the season. And I'm just gonna kick it straight over to Superintendent Carpenter, I think. At least that's what my paper says.
Sounds good. Yeah, all right. Well, first of all, happy anniversary to the Budget Committee and back. It's always great to be back at this time of year again, and it is so great to see so many veteran Budget Committee members here with us today, as well as our board. Very grateful for that as well. On top of today, I just want to celebrate the fact that as we conclude this year's budget, I think you're going to see the great work that we did last year has really turned into a tremendous increase in our ability to serve our kids. We continue to be a growing population with more and more kids with unique needs coming into our public education system. And you built a budget last year that gave us the flexibility to be able to be nimble and adjust and pivot in order to meet those needs and demands while still coming in at the end of this year with a very healthy and fund balance. You're going to see, if you haven't seen already, school districts around the state of Oregon who are making significant cuts. In fact, just today, the Silver Falls School District in Silverton, Oregon, has to cut $1.8 million from their budget today in order to finish this school year, and then cut an additional $8 million next year. Portland Public needs to cut $30 million. Salem Kaiser needs to cut about 40-something million inside of that. And so I'm excited because we're on the complete opposite of that spectrum, where we're actually doing quite well. And we're looking to increase staffing levels next year rather than reduce, which we're very excited about. And a lot of that is also due in part to the fact that when we got some of those COVID ESSER funds and some of those additional grants, we chose to purchase things and not people. And so now that these federal dollars are coming to an end, we don't have to reduce a workforce that we never hired in the first place. And so I'm also very proud of that as we work through our culture and morale and just how we serve and support our kids. So this is going to be an exciting budget process. We've got a lot of great things to share with you, and we really want your feedback, as we always do. And this team of people, both the three of you that I'm looking at, whom I know quite well, and our great board of directors, we're 3 for 3, knock on wood, or 4 for 4 in some cases, of building a very successful budget, and I'm very excited to do it again this year. So thank you so much for your time, your volunteerism, and this is a dynamic group of people that I'm excited to engage with. So, cheers. And now Christina Irish will take it from here.
Thank you. The Budget 101 is just kind of to give you information on what a budget committee is and how we build the budget. And then we're going to give you some more specific information on what we as Estacada School District are looking at when we're building this next year budget.
Just real quickly, though, because we have a veteran group of people who have heard this 10 times, but just to know, too, this is being publicly videoed and for the local public as well. So we'll work quickly through this,
Yes.
But at the same time, be transparent.
And my hopes are you still pull something out, even though you've probably heard it every time I've been here. But so what is local budget law? It's ORS 294. We're it's very structured on how we build our budget. It gives us our procedures. It outlines programs and fiscal policies. It encourages citizen participation. And it requires that we give an estimate for our revenue and our expenditures. And it controls our expenditures for public funds. The budget is a plan of how we're going to spend for our next fiscal year, which starts July 1st. It supports our strategic plan. It is based upon information that we know at this time. And expenditures, it gives us a lawful appropriations where we're able to spend our public funds. The 4 phases of budget, the proposed budget, which is what you guys will receive May 1st. The approved budget, that's what you will do. And then adopting the budget, that is what our board will do. And then changes after adoption. Proposed budget, the phases of proposed budget is the budget calendar, which the board did adopt, and I did send you a copy. We develop our goals and our priorities. We prepare the proposed budget. We publish the public notices that are required, and we hold our official budget committee meetings, which the first one is May 8th. The proposed budget is done by fund. We're required to have an equal amount of revenues and expenditures. And again, it's based upon information we know at the time. This is what it looks like. You look at 2 years of history, and then our current year working a budget, and then our proposed, approved, and then adopted for the following year. How we do, we begin by predicting what our beginning fund balance, which Ryan briefly told you we are looking at a good fund balance going into next year. And then we determine our revenues by fund. And then transfers going into any fund. And then finally our expenditures for each fund. And we'll go a little more in detail for those. So our revenues are our state school fund, our property taxes, interest earnings, we get money from our ESD, and then fees such as admissions, athletic fees, we get lunch fees, things like that, and then grants. Grants is another thing which you'll see in our special revenue funds. And a little bit about how you will see our expenditures. ODE gives us a chart of accounts. ODE is Oregon Department of Education. And they break it out by fund, which is what I like to call the first pot of money. And that's accounts for all the financial resources of the district. Function, describes the type of activity, and this is where we do our appropriation levels. We do them by function. Object, that's kind of the what we're doing in there. Are we buying supplies? Are we doing purchase services? And then location is our schools or departments. And then areas, this is designed to help more identify areas, such as this is for math, this is for athletics, and then sub areas, that is done by district, and they get to determine how they want to use that to identify things. We have done that to identify past year, previous year grant, this year grant, also special projects such as when we had the gym floor resurface, we identified all the expenditures using those last 3 codes. And then again, a little bit more about each fund, each pot of money. The general fund is our general operating budget that is mainly funded by state school fund and property taxes. Special revenue fund, this is mostly done by grants. Debt service fund, this is where we pay our debt services, and this is money collected by property taxes such as property taxes for school bonds, or and then capital projects funds. This is we get the money we get from this is for construction excise tax. This fund is only to be used for capital projects such as big projects throughout our district to maintain our buildings. And then appropriation by function. So 1,000 is our instructionals. That's anything directly related to teaching our students. Support services, that's anything that is supporting the teaching of our students, such as payroll, bus drivers, human resources, any support services is under that. Community services, that you will find our food services programs in that. Facilities acquisition and constructions, that's mainly used for maintaining our buildings. And then debt services is our principal and interest payments. And contingencies is where we budget, in case of an emergency, we like to hold a contingency so that we could take to the board and get an appropriation to be able to respond to that emergency. And then in some funds, you'll see an unappropriated ending fund balance. And a little bit more about the objects. It's broken out. First, the 100s are all salaries, anything to pay our employees, our direct employees. Associated payroll costs, that's all taxes, healthcare costs, tuition cost, and that's directly anything related to paying for our employees' work. Purchase services, that is for when we hire someone to come do things for us, such as auditors, lawyers, but it is also our utility cost. All of our utilities are in there, and also our charter school payments are in there. And then supplies and materials, that's just anything paper to anything on a minor rate, such as a desk. For bigger projects, anything over $5,000, that would be capital outlay. And that could be technology, buildings, anything that we spend over $5,000, you'll find under the 500s. Other objects, that is our dues, our fees, also our debt payments. And then transfers, that's where we record our expenses if we move funds from like general fund to our capital projects funds. And then again, contingency is our reserve, or what we're holding in case of an emergency. We do have our publications, we are required to do publications before our first official budget committee meeting. It has to be in newspaper of general circulation or a mailing to each house in our area, or hand deliver. It has to be published no less than 5 days before, or 30 days, 5 days or more than 30 days. The very first budget committee has to be published twice. And then moving on to approving the budget. The budget committee, it consists of the governing body and the equal number of appointed electors. So we have 7 board members. We are allowed to have 7 appointed members. Appointed members cannot be employees, agents of officers of the districts. On average, we have a staggered 3-year period for each member. And all members, the board members and the budget committee members, have the same authority and voting rights. And if not all positions are filled, the committee can have fewer. So this year we do have 12. The budget committee will receive the budget document. They will also receive the superintendent's message. They will review the proposed budget, hear the public's questions and comments, discuss and revise the budget and determine by majority if they want to make changes, approve the budget and recommend adoption to the board, and approve the proposed property taxes. All meetings of the budget committee are open to the public. We do have to allow public comment at least 1 meeting. The budget committee, or the budget becomes a public document when the budget committee receives it, so it will become a public document on May 1st. And a quorum is required to do business. Today is not an official budget committee meeting, but we would be required to have 7 at a budget committee meeting because there is 12 on our team. At our very first meeting, we're going to elect a presiding officer. We're going to receive the budget document, kind of already went through that. The budget message explains our budget document. It describes our financial policies that we are using when building the document and explains any changes that we have done compared to the previous year document. Feel free to ask questions at any time. The next step is approving the budget and the tax levy. A majority of the committee must approve. The committee approves the proposed budget as presented or amended. Once approved, the budget committee's work is complete until the next budget cycle. Then we go on to the next step, which is we publish the summary and the notice of public hearing, or the ED1. We have to do that not less than 5 days or more than 30 days prior to our board hearing. And that it has to say the time, place, and hearing, and the location where the budget may be reviewed. Then it moves on to our governing board. They will hold a budget hearing at the June board meeting. They will hear testimony from any interested parties, and they will consider the budget committee's work and the public comments, and then deliberate. If adjustments are requested, they are allowed as long as the fund will not increase by more than 10% or 5,000, whichever is greater, or if the rate of the tax amount is increased at all. If at that time it does meet any one of those thresholds, we have to hold another budget hearing before adopting. And just a little bit more, how the budget is built. We talked a little bit about our state school fund and revenue, just giving a picture. Our state school fund, we use December estimates. And then the state will return that and give it to us by the beginning of March, and that's what we use. Property taxes, we use a collection trend on our estimate, and we also try to get information from the Clackamas County assessors on assessed value. Tuition is based upon our trend and any current contracts. And now we're going to go into a little bit more about our state school fund for next year. You'll see here for next year, in the 2024-25, our ADMR is 3,168. And then we are allotted a different weight for each of those individual categories. So our total ADMW is 3,631 and 53. That number does include charter school numbers. And a couple of things I wanted to point out in there. You will notice our special education, we are allotted to 11%. They'll pay us a double weight up to 11%. We have hit that 11%. We currently, as of December, had 396 students, and that's about 33 students over the cap, the 11% cap. So the Oregon Department of Education uses that December number when rolling this out. So that number will not change until this next December when they do again another special education count.
Is this why the difference is? I mean, why it's so much significantly more this next year? Last year it was 2334, and this year it's 3631.
So the 2334 is just us. You'll see down below is Summit. So they, in the current year, they take the two numbers separately. So both of them together are 3,717.
So it's actually less.
It's actually less next year, but that is partly why, is because of
Okay,
the
I
weight.
see the 3,000.
Yeah.
Because we went over that.
360.
Yeah,
Okay,
we-
okay. My
Yeah,
numbers
the
are.
cap is, yep,
Where does the 11% come from?
the state,
Yep.
Is that just a magical number, somebody determined you can't have more than 11%?
yes.
We're not gonna pay anymore?
Yes.
And it is something that, I mean, it was on the legislative, but it didn't, so we're hoping to get that on the legislative again, because it has been that way for many, many years,
Yeah.
so.
What is the state average, like for actual
real.
enrollment.
Between 12 and 14%.
It's pretty
Yeah.
consistent through all
Yeah,
districts.
and we're actually high, areas, rural areas like ours, I mean, we run at 16%. So the charter school actually makes us look better because they have a considerably decreased population of special education. But Estacada School District proper is at 16% today.
So many things don't make sense.
That one has been in place for decades,
And
and
it's
it has
been-
not changed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we're over that cap and can't manage more students, we still do take more students?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Great
Yeah.
question.
Legally,
So we
we're,
can manage it, but it's just more
Right,
difficult,
yeah.
spreads you more thin.
yes, you got it. Yep.
Is this a topic with the legislature that's on the docket, I guess you could say,
Yes.
coming up? Because I know I remember hearing this year after year that
Yes.
it's been on, but it really truly is this time.
Well,
do we
that's,
know?
it's the same as it's always been. In fact, I was just meeting with Courtney Neuron, who's the representative and is the chair of the Senate Education Committee. And she said that she's going to try to prioritize increasing this in the coming open legislation forum for the state. But that is no different than every time they've said they've
Gotcha.
tried to move through this, but it's
I just
all-
know it affects every school
it does.
district in the
Yes.
state. It's
Yeah.
not just us, so.
Yeah.
Correct.
If it increases it, though, it's just gonna decrease something else.
That's correct. The money is still the money from the same pot, correct.
Probably.
Yep.
Correct. Okay, moving on. Oops, I went backwards. Okay, and the next part of the state school fund is our local revenue. So in December, we project what our local revenue, such as property taxes, is gonna be, our common school fund. So we're we about 9.9 million there. And then they also, ODE does an experience adjustment based on our teachers' experience. And then we also look at our transportation grant because we are reimbursed up to 70% for our transportation expenditures, so we estimate that. And then again, we're looking at our ADMW. So even though our ADMW was showing lower, they pay us the higher of the 2 years, so we are gonna get paid off the 3,717. So with that, we have the formula where they take our teacher experience and multiply that by 25, and then add 45,000, so we get 4,452. And then you take that and multiply that by our ADMW, our weighted, our 3,717, and then by the funding ratio, which is a ratio that is given to us by ODE, and I've never figured out how to get that number, but it changes every time we get a new form. So it changes across the state for every school district. And that will give us 38,743,780. Then the next step they're gonna do is add our transportation grant to that. And then they're gonna take away our local revenue, because again, we are funded based upon per student. So if we get that money in local revenue, then they're gonna take it away in our state funding. So next year, we're projected to get about 10,422 per student. Any questions?
Have you heard anything about the Jewel School District suing the state because of the timber part of it? Because this just says right here that if we get timber dollars, it subtracts off the state school fund, right?
Right.
I just don't know how anybody with any brains can even want to bring that to the state and try to sue them.
Right,
Because if they get that money from the timber side, it's just gonna be a net deduction, right?
correct.
And I know Douglas County, it comes up every so often down there because of all the state and federal grounds locked up.
Yeah.
That they're not logging in. But I don't know what the basis of it is. I just heard it recently and,
I'll look into it.
But yeah, you're right.
I mean, the only thing it would do is maybe raise the tide a little bit for everybody, right? Cause it's more money being pumped in from an
Yes.
alternative source. But then it gets,
Right,
everybody gets a piece of it, right?
Everyone gets the same piece of it, yeah.
And that's what the funding ratio is, our piece of it, yeah.
And is that 2.34, is it the same in Lake Oswego and Long Creek?
No, that's our portion of it as Estacada, but that's our portion of the, state school fund that we get. Oops, I keep going backwards, sorry. Okay, the next thing that we do is we look at our mandatory or fixed expenditures, such as our contracted salaries, which are negotiated, our substitute costs, which you find them under our purchase services, our contracted health benefits, our utilities, our mandated special education of spending, our MOE, and then essential building maintenance, custodial supplies, transportation supplies. In that, again, we look at salaries, benefits, our debt that we have to pay, our charter school payments, and moving on. And then the next is our variable costs. What is it that we get to look at next year, such as our curriculum needs, any state mandates that we need to fund, textbook adoption cycle, our professional development plans, equipment needs. And then you see here, our fixed costs are locked in. Between salaries and contracted services, that is about 93% of our budget. So our variable costs that we have is very little that we get to work with. And things of variable costs are the textbooks, staff, professional development, supplies for each department. And again, our revenues and resources minus our expenditures is a balanced budget. And then calculation of our tax levies. So by Measure 50, we have a permanent rate that stays all the time. The only thing that changes is our assessed value. And that is taken by our permanent rate times our assessed value at 1,000 of our assessed value, sorry. So budget in a nutshell, what we went over, it is a financial management tool. It's created over a series of months. It's created with a snapshot of what we know at the time. It's based upon the resources we have available. Expenditures are adopted with board strategic plan, and appropriations must conform with Oregon budget law. So going into a little bit about what we're looking into for next year. So doing some analysis, some things that is changing this next year is our liability and property insurance. We're hearing it's going up between 15 to 20%. So here's a picture of what we have historically paid, what we've budgeted for our current year, and what we're projecting for next year, just to kind of give you an idea. Again, this will probably be in our first budget meeting, but we are projecting that we will be at a lower rate based upon our use of our insurance, so we're saying about 15% increase.
On the property insurance, because if you go back, the liability insurance, we're saying, okay.
But, so essentially, the property insurance has gone up $100,000 since 22, 23.
Yeah, so the one on the left is the proposed.
Yeah, and there was a big, last year they went through and changed our assessed values, and that's why our property tax went up so much last year.
Okay, and then we budgeted 180 for liability insurance last year, but we only spent 142. So that's
Currently, as of today, yes.
of our actuals.
Yeah.
It also increased last year, if I remember correctly, too.
Yeah.
It was a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the last couple of years, it has gone up quite a bit.
My
insurance has gone up too.
Yeah.
The next one is our unemployment. You can see here that our historical, we're self-insured for our unemployment, so we pay the claims as they come up. But for this next year, January 1st, Senate Bill 489 passed, and I kind of gave you a little information about there. With this, changes to our unemployment insurance allow individuals who work for educational institutions in roles other than teaching, research, and principal administration to be eligible for unemployment benefits during a break or recess period. So the 600 is based upon, 600,000 is, OASBA created a tool to kind of put all of our estimated salaries in and our breaks in, and we're looking at about 600,000 for
Have
next
we
year.
considered not self-insuring?
It's the same, no matter where we're still gonna have to pay that. We'll just have to pay someone to maintain it too for us. So that is a possibility for us to continue to, and we will look at that if that's gonna be a future need
Yeah.
moving into this,
Yeah.
but.
We're not saying no forever to that. We
No.
may need to do it, but in this first year, we're gonna take a look at how many people actually use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When we say break or recess, we're talking like a lunch break during school or,
No.
Like,
Summer break.
oh
so,
gosh, I thought we were gonna start.
This, if
No.
I remember correctly, didn't this kind of stem from COVID a little
Holy
bit
smokes,
too?
okay.
With
Yeah, it's
teachers getting a day off? and
yeah, although
things-
the
yeah.
teachers don't count for this. This is
Yeah.
like our cooks, bus drivers, custodians,
Okay.
classified folks, and apparently it's a norm in other industries. Like, for example, people who fight fire during fire season, once fire season is over, they're eligible to claim unemployment at the end of fire season. But so what the law says is anytime that 5 consecutive days, there's a break for 5 consecutive days, that makes you eligible for unemployment. So where we're worried is winter break is 2 weeks. And so our employees could be eligible to claim unemployment for the second week of winter break. And then 5 days of spring break, 5 days of May break will also make them eligible to receive unemployment benefits on day 1 of summer break, if they choose to do so.
They have a 1-week
4-day
waiting
breaks
period,
from
1 week.
Yeah.
So since it started July or January 1st, they have a 1-week waiting period that they would have had to request it. And then come May break, and then summer break.
Well, but May break, I mean, that's only 1 week, and so they'll go back to work.
Correct.
So then it's not gonna come back up again until we're done in June.
Correct.
Then they have a week off,
Yes.
and then they're eligible.
No, per
because
year, they
then-
only have to
calendar
do.
year.
Calendar year, they only,
Per
yeah,
calendar-
yeah.
Is that only for these types of
Yes.
employees?
Yes.
Because I was gonna say, other people, is it the same?
It is the same in other people's positions, professions. Education was exempt, but they just changed
So
that
you only
exemption
have
to
to
allow
not work for 1 week through the whole year?
5 consecutive days.
Interesting.
And that makes you eligible for unemployment in the event of another break. Yep. And as you can imagine, the local union organizations, actually not the local, the state union organizations are educating people actively on how to leverage this. And so the district has no opinion of what our employees choose to do. However, we have a responsibility to budget accordingly. And this $600,000 chunk is going to hurt out the gate, but we're hopeful that few people utilize this, and so what we have to replace this hole with in future is less than the $600,000 we're planting there now.
And this was statewide, right?
Yeah.
Not just us,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yep. North
Correct.
Clackamas, I met with them today, and we need to look into this as well. They've already done it, but North Clackamas has hundreds of employees, and only 9, did their claim for spring break. And so we're hoping that ours will be similar to that from a percentage representation. Okay.
Okay, the next thing is our utility cost. We know that increases have happened, so we did an analysis of what we have been spending in the past with what we currently budgeted. In the notes on here is that in 2023-24, our current year, budget is 4% less than what we spent in 2022-23. So when we created this budget, we didn't know what we actually would end up with in expenditures, and we did not budget enough in this current year for utilities, based upon history. Currently, year-to-date, we're at $869,601 for the year, which is above our budget amount. For next year, we are proposing a 20% increase from the budget. Part of that is due to the utility costs, and also part of that is due to a new property that we are renting for one of our RTS program. Any questions on that?
Wasn't there an adjustment with SRO too?
Yeah, and that's in that
Security
security services. Yep.
Is that more coverage, or is that just a,
Increase in wages and various other things. Yeah.
And then the security services also are our alarm systems too, and that, so that's not just the SRO cost.
Yeah.
So when we look at electricity, I could do the math probably, but where do we anticipate we're gonna end this budget year at? If we're at 365 year-to-date through,
And that includes encumbrances, so we do.
it does include, oh yeah, it does, okay.
Yeah. So I'm hoping it's not much more than the 365.
Okay.
Yeah. It is possible considering, especially, well, last year was 341.
Just wondering if we budgeted a big enough increase. Is that 20%?
It's 20% more than the current year budget.
But that's all of it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Let me math here for a second. So we're only factoring in a 9.6% increase in electricity, which I don't, based on what I'm hearing.
So I'm confused because we budgeted 407,000 for
18%.
23, 24. And
Yeah.
we're proposing a 400, so a decrease in our budget for?
Based upon historical, in 2022-23, we only spent 341,000.
Gotcha.
So I would just say on the electricity, because we've talked to a lot of PGE folks, I think that the number they increased rates was 19%. So just based on that, if that's a dollar to dollar, we're 10% low if we ended at 365. So I just think we need to take another
That's why we're
take a
doing
look
this.
at that.
Yep.
And again, this isn't, these are just things that we are all considering as, like, today I'm building the budget.
Yep.
So the budget is not done yet.
But yeah, I would look at that one for sure.
well, and that went into effect January too, so we're only gonna see 6 months of that reflected in that 365
True.
Yeah, but we'll have 12 months
Next.
next
next
year.
year.
Yeah.
Since we have a city expert in the house, can we maybe ask about water and sewer, what, like, the percentage increase is gonna be?
I don't know if I'm that much of an expert, but I don't know how many units that the school district pays for, but we can make a calculation for that because the council's already indicated for residents, I think it's a $10 per unit increase on sewer, and it was, I want to say it was 3 point something for water. So we could calculate that to, if that would
Yeah,
help with the.
give us a
Yeah.
more realistic look, for sure.
Okay.
Any other questions on utilities? Okay, moving forward to some positive things, things that we are looking at adding when we're building this current year budget. The first is we are looking at adding some elementary support for the first 30 days, mostly in the kindergarten classes. We're calling them 30-day kinder helpers. And that they may be helping in other areas, and our experienced paraeducators may be helping with these kinders. But the first 30 days is a lot in those classrooms, and we want to provide support. The next is adding of the middle school and our unified sports athletic budget. Both our middle school and our middle school has been having athletics, but we have not provided them with a budget or coaching stipends. And we do want to identify our unified sports program and also provide them with a coaching stipend and an athletic budget. The next is adding 1 FTE for our counselor at our Clackamas River Elementary. This is advocated heavily by the school, and we're excited to be able to add this to our budget. And this will make 2 counselors at all of our schools, so exciting. The next is adding of 1 FTE in our human resources. It will be for our personal support specialists. Our human resources work really hard, and we have a lot of different things coming at this, so this will be a support to them and being able to quickly provide great customer service. The next is we are really wanting to add to our special education program. You see, we do have, we talked about already our number of special education students, so we are going to add an allotment of dollars to our special education program, and we are learning more about what that will look like, and I'll probably have more information about that when the budget document comes out. Adding of a .875 for a bilingual paraeducator. Is a growing population, and we do want to have staff that would be able to support them. The next is adding of 1 FTE for its second interpreter. So this is already in our current year budget under our SIA, but we are moving it to the general fund, so you'll see it as an add there. The next is removing of a TOSA position, which is a current district improvement coach position. This is a position that is currently being filled by Lindsay Fullenwire, who's now going to be River Mills principal. So we are not going to fill that vacant position. The next, which we've already talked about, is our utilities cost, our liability and property tax insurance, our unemployment rate. And then also we are adding both income and our rent costs for our RTS program that we are building down in downtown Estacada. And then in the student investment account, currently we have 2 things that are happening. We're removing that second interpreter and moving them to the general fund. And then we're adding 1 FTE for an ELL program coordinator. This is a position that we had in the past, and we are bringing it back. We do have a staff member who will fill it, and their current position will become vacant in the general fund to be filled.
Sorry, going back a few bullets, what does RTS stand for?
Road to Success,
Yes.
and it's our alternative pathway. Yep. And it's actually formerly Road to Success. Our students are actively working right now to rename it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then now, our next meeting will be May 8th, and I will be notifying you when our budget document is available on May 1st. That is all I have. Any questions?
I did hear something on the radio the other day, so I'm tacking on to like Ben's asking about, lawsuits or whatever. Because Oregon hit a ginormous jackpot, right? Winner
Yes.
of a ginormous jackpot, and that
It
means
wasn't me
additional-
too, and
I know,
I played in
I
that
know.
one, yeah.
But I was excited to hear that a lot of the tax paid to Oregon will go to schools.
Yes.
I don't know if that, this is a big one. Has this happened in the past? Do we know what it looks like when something like that happens?
I was actually told, I believe that this is one of the first giant jackpots. Oregon has never won a giant jackpot before, but yes, that will go into the lottery and marijuana funds. And even, if the people who even play video poker to some extent on a regular basis, like all of that goes into a bucket and then that's distributed throughout the schools and that process. The same with marijuana sales as well. So this hopefully will be a bigger one that will allow us to do some additional things. Yeah, but I don't know what yet. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
I think having those changes to review before the budget comes out is really helpful. Thank you,
Yes.
Christina. I think that provides just that what's changing context
Yes.
to look at that 7% plus, some of the bigger changes in the different
Yeah.
funds and stuff. So thank you.
And those ads also come from the voices of our employees that we're sharing with you today too. And we estimate that that's around $400,000 in addition. And so as we'll share with you as you get to see the budget and our financials next month, we have the space and capacity to continue to improve our services to our families based on a great budget that we had last year. This current year, I guess, is where we're at. Yeah. And last year's budget, if you didn't know, won a state and national award. So
The audit.
the audit, sorry. But that means we had a good budget and we spent it correctly. So,
Tracked it well.
yeah, there you go. Yep.
All right.
That is all I
Any other
have.
questions? So then we will reconvene on the 8th or the 1st?
The 8th.
8th. Okay. Are we able to get a copy of the budget prior to that?
May 1st.
That's what I got, the 1st. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll get a copy of the budget on May 1st. So please take some time, review that budget so that we're not taking that meeting to review it. We're taking that meeting to talk about it and dig into the details. And then at that first meeting on the 8th, we will elect or vote on a presiding officer. It's on that side of the room, so everybody knows.
If you're not here, you get elected.
That is true.
Who are the 2 additional members?
Lori, can't remember their,
I was just
sorry.
Is Bever still on? Joey?
No,
Who?
No.
Jody's
Jody
off.
Bever.
No. Lori Hutman and Carol.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And we have an opening, yes?
2 openings.
Two
We
openings?
have 2 openings.
And it's not too
The
late?
more the merrier.
Yeah.
No,
I'm with
they
you.
would need to apply right away. The application is posted on our website under the business offices page. And if they do, then I can bring it to the, May board meeting for approval.
Okay.
Yes.
and I will say for anybody out there listening, if you're scared to be on the budget committee, we've got some seasoned professionals here. And this work that we do ahead of time and getting the budget out ahead of time, makes it very, very feasible to go through. And it keeps us from, so far, keeps us from having to do 5, 6, 7, 8 meetings to come to a budget. So, we've had good success in pre-reviewing and making good time of that, good work in that time. So, it is a great opportunity to get involved if you want to be involved in your local school district and take a peek under the hood, as it were, with the budget. So,
All right.
all right, so
Thanks,
we
everybody.
will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you again. I echo Superintendent's comments at the beginning. So we really appreciate you for being here and the time and effort and energy you put into it, because it makes a big difference. So, all right, we'll see you on the 8th.
Thanks.
Thank